Welcome, spicy lady. Let's sit down and have a real talk about something that's probably been bugging you. If you're a Sigma female, you know how it goes. You're out minding your own business, maybe grabbing a coffee, working on your laptop at a quiet corner table, or just doing your weekly grocery run. You're in your zone, totally at peace. But then, someone tries to strike up a conversation. And more often than not, it's not the single guy looking for a date. It's the guy with the wedding band on his finger. It's annoying, right? It makes you roll your eyes. You're probably wondering, why is it always the married guys? Why can't single guys show this kind of interest? And why are these married men so drawn to my space? Well, it's not a coincidence. There's a very specific energy you carry as a Sigma female, and it acts like a magnet for men who are already taken. Let's break it down. We're going to look at the 9 real, no-nonsense reasons why Sigma females attract married men way more than single men. Point 1. The mystery factor that we don't overshare. We don't post every meal or every mood swing on social media. That silence is rare. To a married man who feels like his life is an open book with no pages left to turn, that mystery is intoxicating. He wants to know what's going on in that brain of yours. The Sigma female operates in a sphere of profound privacy that is almost extinct in the modern digital age. While the rest of the world clamors for external validation through constant status updates, curated photos, and emotional broadcasting, the Sigma female maintains an ironclad boundary around her personal life. Her digital footprint is sparse, intentional, and deliberately incomplete. In a world where people are desperate to be known and obsessed with being seen, this chosen silence is incredibly rare. To an average man, this silence might be confusing, but to a married man who feels that his domestic life has become an open book with no remaining pages left to turn, this mystery is nothing short of intoxicating. The married man often exists in a cycle of total transparency. In a long-term commitment, secrets are often stripped away by necessity or habit. He likely knows every routine, every habitual response, and every predictable preference of his current partner. There's no longer a gap between who his partner is and what he knows about her. This total accessibility, while stable, can sometimes morph into a stifling form of boredom. When this man encounters a Sigma female, he hits a wall he cannot immediately see through. She is a locked door in a house where every other room has been left wide open. The Sigma female carries an aura of self-sufficiency that suggests she has a rich, complex internal world that does not require his participation or his approval to function. This triggers a primitive, relentless curiosity in him. He spends his days surrounded by people who are constantly asking for his attention or giving him more information than he actually wants to process. Then, he meets the Sigma female who offers nothing of the sort. She is not performing for him. She is not adjusting her personality to fit into his expectations. Because she does not project her life outward, the married man starts to project his own fantasies onto her. He finds himself consumed by the urge to decode her. He wants to know what she is thinking, why she is so calm, and why she is seemingly unfazed by the social pressures that seem to dictate the lives of everyone else he knows. The mystery becomes a puzzle he desperately wants to solve. He misinterprets her independence as a secret she is keeping rather than a lifestyle she is living. He assumes that because she is quiet, there must be something deep and hidden waiting to be uncovered. When in reality, the Sigma female is simply prioritizing her own peace of mind over the need for performative social interaction. This psychological tension is exactly what makes the Sigma female so dangerously compelling to a man whose own life has lost its sense of discovery. Point 2. No neediness signal. Most people are walking around with a "please like me" sign taped to their forehead. We don't have that. You aren't asking him for his time, his money, or his attention. Because you aren't chasing, he feels the urge to pursue. It's simple human nature. The Sigma female exists as the ultimate enigma in the realm of modern human connection because she does not radiate the typical neediness signal that most men have grown accustomed to managing. In the standard dating market, the majority of people walk around with a metaphorical "please like me" sign taped to their forehead, signaling a hunger for approval, external validation, and constant reassurance. The Sigma female is entirely different because she does not broadcast this demand. She does not look to others to fill the gaps in her own self-worth. She is already whole, and she is perfectly comfortable standing in her own space without reaching out to pull someone else into it. For a man who is currently trapped in a relationship defined by mutual dependency and constant emotional bartering, this lack of need is a massive anomaly. He is used to a dynamic where every action has a trade-off, where affection is often conditional, and where the atmosphere is thick with the weight of unstated requirements. When he encounters a Sigma female, he is suddenly face to face with a woman who is not asking him for anything. She does not need his time, his money, his emotional labor, or his validation to sustain her mood. Because the Sigma female is not chasing him, the natural human urge to pursue shifts into high gear within him. It is a fundamental law of attraction that when one party stops leaning in, the other party instinctively leans forward to bridge the gap. This is not a game the Sigma female is playing. It is simply her baseline existence. However, to a married man, her self-contained nature feels like a challenge to his ego. He is accustomed to being the provider or the problem solver. But with the Sigma female, there is nothing for him to provide and no problem for him to solve. This creates a state of perpetual imbalance in his mind. He feels irrelevant because she is completely fine without him, and that feeling of irrelevance triggers a frantic unconscious desire to be necessary. He begins to wonder why he cannot get under her skin, why she is not impressed by his status or his attempts to charm her, and why she seems so content within her own singular orbit. The more she stays in her own lane, the more he feels compelled to invade it. He interprets her lack of need as a lack of interest, and he views that perceived lack of interest as a mountain he must climb. He tells himself that if he could just get her to notice him, or if he could just get her to rely on him for something small, he would finally feel the validation he is missing elsewhere. He does not realize that her autonomy is not a tactic. It is the core of who she is. This makes the Sigma female a constant nagging point of focus in his mind, drawing him in precisely because she is the one woman who is not looking his way. Point 3, the peer vibe. A lot of people play roles, the submissive partner, the helper, the person who needs fixing. We don't. We stand on our own 2 feet. A man in a stagnant relationship sees that and thinks, finally, someone I can actually talk to like an equal. It's refreshing, even if it's dangerous for him. The third point of attraction for a married man is that the Sigma female embodies the peer vibe, a quality that is shockingly rare in his daily domestic landscape. Most adults fall into rigid, predictable roles within their long-term relationships. There is often the role of the caregiver, the nagging critic, the one who demands constant emotional maintenance, or the one who is constantly being told what to do and how to act. These roles are suffocating, and they slowly strip away the sense of equality that once existed at the start of a partnership. When a man has been living in a dynamic where he is either the manager or the managed for years, he begins to crave an interaction that is free from these heavy, exhausting labels. The Sigma female enters his world as a complete wild card. She does not play the submissive partner. She does not try to be the mother figure. And she certainly does not act as a helper trying to fix his life. She stands on her own 2 feet with a quiet, grounded confidence that screams equality. The Sigma female treats him exactly like she treats everyone else, as an individual person, rather than a project or a possession. This is profoundly disorienting for a man who is used to being viewed through the lens of his marriage. When he talks to a Sigma female, he realizes he is actually having a conversation, not a negotiation or a lecture. He is not being measured by his contributions to the household or his ability to follow instructions. For the first time in a long time, he feels seen as an individual rather than a cog in a machine. This perceived equality feels like a cool breeze on a sweltering day. It is refreshing, clean, and entirely devoid of the baggage he carries home every evening. The Sigma female does not care about his status, his house, or his marital obligations. She speaks her mind clearly. She listens with intent, and she offers opinions that are genuinely her own, rather than echoes of what he wants to hear. This is dangerous because it feels like a bridge back to a version of himself that he remembers from before he was settled. He starts to associate the Sigma female with the freedom to be intellectually challenged. He begins to seek out her perspective because she is one of the few people who does not have a vested interest in the outcome of his daily decisions. She is a neutral party who treats him as a peer, and that level of respect is something he feels he can no longer find at home. He does not stop to realize that she is not looking for a peer to save, nor is she looking to be saved by him. She is simply existing, and the mere fact that she treats him with an honest, unvarnished equality makes him crave her presence. He feels like he is finally being treated like a man, and that is a drug he cannot stop chasing. Take a second. If what I'm saying resonates, if you felt that strange weight of being observed by people who should be looking elsewhere, hit that like button. It helps tell the algorithm that we're done with the shallow, generic content and ready for the real talk point 4. We don't try to change anyone that we're too busy working on ourselves. We don't have the energy to nag or control. When a guy is tired of being managed at home, your do-your-own-thing attitude feels like total freedom. The fourth reason a Sigma female captures the attention of a married man is that she holds a unique position of non-interference. She fundamentally does not attempt to change anyone. This is a radical departure from the psychological landscape of most long-term commitments, where energy is often spent in a constant grinding battle to mold the other person into a more ideal version of themselves. Over time, the pressure to conform, the frequent criticisms regarding lifestyle choices, and the endless suggestions for personal improvement can make a man feel like he is living under a microscope. He starts to feel that his core identity is being slowly eroded, polished down, or entirely reconstructed to fit the expectations of his household. The Sigma female is the complete antithesis of this experience. Because she is intensely focused on her own path, her own intellectual pursuits, and her own personal evolution, she simply does not have the interest or the energy to nag, control, or manage another human being. She is too busy observing the world and perfecting her own craft to care about how a man spends his weekends or whether he follows her advice. When a married man spends time around a Sigma female, he immediately notices this lack of judgment. She does not offer unsolicited advice on his wardrobe, his career trajectory, or his social habits. She does not look at him with the expectation that he must evolve or change to satisfy some invisible requirement. This absence of pressure is intoxicating. It feels like total absolute freedom. For a man who is constantly being poked, prodded, and redirected at home, the presence of a Sigma female feels like a place where he can finally put his shield down. He feels as though he can breathe deeply for the first time in years. This is not because she is passive. It is because she is secure. The Sigma female knows that changing another person is a waste of her limited, precious time. She is perfectly content to let people be exactly who they are as long as they do not infringe upon her own peace. This profound indifference to his personal development is exactly what makes her so attractive. He mistakes her lack of interest in fixing him as an expression of total acceptance. He feels that he can show his messy, flawed, or stagnant self to her without being punished or analyzed. She does not try to steer his ship, and because she does not try to steer his ship, he feels a magnetic pull to be around her. He starts to crave this dynamic because it is the only space in his life where he is not being audited or measured. He views her non-interference as an invitation to relax. He does not realize that her silence is not a sign of affection. It is a sign of her independence. She is simply not invested in the outcome of his life, and that autonomy is the very thing he finds most impossible to look away from, fueling his relentless obsession with gaining her favor. Point 5. High standards quietly held that we aren't loud about our standards, but we don't lower them either. People feel that. It forces a man to step up his game just to be in your orbit. It's a challenge he's not used to. The fifth reason for this dynamic lies in the way the Sigma female holds her standards. She possesses a quiet internal set of values that she does not announce, yet she never lowers them for the sake of comfort or social inclusion. Most people in the world are constantly adjusting their behavior to suit the room. They are perpetually bending, apologizing, or softening their edges to make sure they fit into the expectations of those around them. The Sigma female refuses this compromise. Her standards are etched into her character, and she carries them with a silent, ironclad dignity. She does not need to lecture others about what she expects because she simply exists in a way that makes it clear what she will and will not tolerate. This is a massive shift for a married man. He is accustomed to a home environment where standards are often the subject of negotiation, debate, or even manipulation. He is used to the idea that if he pushes hard enough, the boundaries will shift to accommodate his needs or his laziness. When he encounters the Sigma female, he realizes very quickly that she is not that kind of person. She does not offer him a seat at her table just because he wants to sit there. If he fails to meet the unspoken level of intellectual or behavioral requirement that she demands, she does not get angry. She simply stops being available. This forces the man to confront a reality he has not dealt with in a very long time. He has to actively step up his game just to be in her orbit. He realizes that his usual tricks, his status, and his marital comfort provide him with zero leverage here. It is an immense ego-bruising challenge that he was not expecting to face. He starts to view her as an objective standard of excellence because she never asks him for anything. Her silence is not a sign of indifference. It is a wall that he cannot climb over with his normal routine. He begins to obsess over whether he is good enough for her, not because he wants a life with her, but because her mere presence acts as a mirror that reflects his own lack of discipline and standards. He finds himself trying to impress her with his intelligence, his wit, or his worldly knowledge, all while knowing that she remains completely unimpressed. This is a game he is losing, and he hates it, but he cannot stop playing it. Her standards are not a fence meant to keep him out, but they function as a filter that only the most genuine and observant people can pass through. She is entirely unbothered by whether he stays or leaves, and that complete lack of need for his approval is the very thing that makes his pursuit so frantic. He is chasing the feeling of being accepted by someone who is fundamentally impossible to buy or sway, and that is a test he has never been required to pass. Point 6. Emotional intelligence without the drama that we understand how people work, but we don't get sucked into the mess. We can listen and be present without taking on someone else's emotional baggage. That's a safe harbor for someone drowning in marital drama. The 6th point of magnetic attraction is the Sigma female's emotional intelligence, which she wields without ever falling into the trap of emotional drama. In most traditional settings, people rely on external expressions to process their feelings. When a man is navigating a troubled or stagnant marriage, he is often subjected to emotional feedback loops, arguments, venting, crying, or silent treatment that require him to be constantly engaged in the heavy lifting of emotional labor. He is conditioned to think that love or intimacy must involve a high degree of volatility or constant negotiation of feelings. Then, he meets the Sigma female. She processes the world through a lens of deep, analytical observation, rather than explosive reaction. She understands the nuances of human behavior. She can read between the lines, and she possesses a calm, steady aura that suggests she has already worked through her own internal storms. She can be present, listen, and offer a perspective that is incredibly sharp and insightful, yet she never permits herself to get sucked into the messiness of someone else's life. For a man drowning in the chaotic, high-pressure environment of a failing domestic dynamic, she is a lighthouse of stability that he looks at the Sigma female and sees a safe harbor where he can dump his thoughts without triggering an avalanche of emotional requirements. She provides a listening ear that is detached, objective, and deeply intelligent, which feels like a luxury he has never experienced. He begins to project a fantasy onto her that she is the only person who truly gets him because she does not react with the same emotional intensity as his partner. He mistakes her lack of drama for a form of emotional intimacy, when in reality she is simply maintaining her own boundaries. She does not take on his baggage, she does not try to solve his problems, and she does not get invested in his personal narrative. She remains a neutral witness to his life. This detachment is exactly what draws him in further, because she does not become overwhelmed by his stress or try to mirror his panic. He starts to view her as an anchor. He finds himself coming to her with his problems, seeking that specific type of validation that only a person who does not care about the outcome can provide, that he wants to be around her because she represents a version of connection that is mentally stimulating, but devoid of the exhausting, heavy, and often toxic emotional obligations he faces every day. He does not see that her capacity to remain cool under pressure is not an invitation to offload his burden, that it is simply her default way of navigating the complexities of human existence. Her intelligence is her shield, and his inability to penetrate that shield through emotional manipulation is precisely what keeps him circling back, desperately trying to find a crack in her armor. Stop. Seriously, just think about the last time you felt that unwanted attention and didn't know why. If you've dealt with this, drop a comment. I want to hear how you handle these situations when you're out in the world. Your perspective adds to the depth of this conversation, and I'm reading every one of them. Point 7, the independent alpha fear. Let's be real. We're intimidating. A single guy might be scared off because he doesn't know how to handle a woman who doesn't need a man to complete her life. But a married man, he's already settled, so he feels safe enough to approach you, thinking he can just flirt without consequences. The seventh reason for this intense attraction is the phenomenon of the independent alpha fear, where the sigma female stands as an intimidating entity that most men do not know how to approach. A single man who is often looking for a partner to build a life with may feel deeply insecure when he meets a woman who is entirely self-sufficient. He feels the weight of his own responsibility and often recoils because he fears he has nothing to offer a woman who already has everything she needs. He sees her independence as a barrier to his relevance, and that fear drives him to step back, leaving the sigma female largely untouched by men who are looking for a traditional dependent partnership. The married man, however, operates from a completely different psychological position. Because he is already legally or socially settled, he possesses a false sense of security that makes him feel emboldened to engage with someone he perceives as high value or dangerous. He does not feel the same pressure to provide for a partner because he assumes his current life remains his primary anchor. This allows him to approach the sigma female with a sense of artificial bravado. He views her as a prize that is immune to the usual tactics of courtship, and that makes her presence feel like an elite challenge. He doesn't see her independence as a threat to his utility. Instead, he sees it as a safe game he can play without the fear of long-term commitment expectations. He convinces himself that because she is so clearly uninterested in being kept or managed, he can flirt and interact with her without the messy binding strings that characterize his home life. He feels he is smart enough to handle her intensity, even if his actual goal is just to capture a sliver of her attention to boost his own fading sense of ego. This misplaced confidence makes him pursue her with a persistence that a single man would lack. He mistakes her lack of interest for a game of hard to get, thinking that if he just puts in enough effort, he will be the one man who actually breaks through her walls. He does not understand that the sigma female is not playing a game, and her independence is not an invitation to initiate a pursuit. She is simply existing in a space where his marriage status is entirely irrelevant. While the single man stays away because he feels out of his league, the married man lingers driven by the belief that he is special enough to be the exception to her rules. He is lured by the very thing that makes her untouchable, trapped in a fantasy where he believes he can enjoy the energy of a powerful, independent woman while remaining protected by the walls of his own life. This dynamic is a dangerous feedback loop where he convinces himself he is conquering a mountain while she remains entirely detached from his efforts. Point 8. We are content alone. There is nothing more powerful than a woman who is genuinely happy in her own company. It shows. That kind of contentment is a magnet, especially for someone who feels lonely even when they're in a room with their partner. The eighth reason that the sigma female draws the attention of the married man is her genuine, uncompromising contentment in her own solitude. In a world where most people are terrified of being alone for even a moment, the sigma female has mastered the art of being her own best company. She does not look for external distractions to numb her thoughts, nor does she use social hangouts as a crutch to avoid confronting her own internal reality. She is genuinely happy and fulfilled while completely alone. A married man who is often surrounded by people yet feels a profound sense of isolation. This level of self-sufficiency is both shocking and deeply alluring. He lives in a house where someone else is almost always present, yet he likely suffers from a deep, knowing loneliness that his current partner cannot fill. He is used to seeing people who are desperate to be part of a couple, people who define their worth by their status as a spouse or a significant other. When he encounters the sigma female, he sees someone who possesses a level of psychological peace that he has not tasted in years, perhaps ever. She does not seem to have any missing pieces. She does not look at him with the expectation that he will complete her day or provide her with happiness. This total self-satisfaction makes her appear to be a rare exotic creature in his eyes. He is used to being the source of his partner's moods or the target of her frustrations. So, seeing a woman who is entirely self-regulating is a complete paradigm shift. He starts to associate the Sigma female with a sense of freedom that he feels he lost the moment he committed to his current life. He projects his own unfulfilled desires onto her, believing that her happiness is tied to some secret wisdom she possesses. He feels a desperate need to get close to that light, thinking that perhaps if he stands near her, some of that calm, independent energy will rub off on him. He does not realize that her contentment is not a quality she is hiding, but a result of her refusal to rely on others for her emotional stability. He tries to crack her shell, believing that there is a deep, needy interior behind her facade, when in reality, she is exactly what she presents. A woman who is entirely whole. He finds himself stalking her presence, hoping for a moment where she shows a crack in her armor, a moment where she seems to need someone. But that moment never arrives. She remains happy alone, and that very fact becomes the obsession of his life. He feels insulted that she does not require his validation to maintain her joy, and that realization drives him to pursue her more aggressively, hoping to prove to himself that he is in fact necessary to her existence. 9. The forbidden hook. Let's not ignore the elephant in the room. There's a thrill in the chase. For a guy who's bored, trying to get a reaction out of a woman who is notoriously hard to impress is the ultimate ego boost. The final reason for this attraction is the powerful underlying allure of the forbidden hook, which acts as a psychological trap for a man whose life has become predictable and stagnant. For a married man who has spent years walking the same path, answering to the same expectations, and living within the same rigid domestic constraints, the idea of pursuing a woman who is notoriously difficult to impress becomes a source of high-octane stimulation. He is not just looking for a partner. He is looking for an ego-boosting high-stakes game that he thinks he can control. The Sigma female is the ultimate target in this scenario because she represents a challenge that he believes is worth the risk. She is not like the people he interacts with at home or at work. She does not give him easy wins. She does not giggle at his jokes just because she is supposed to, and she does not validate his status just because he holds a position of power in the world. This makes her incredibly difficult to decode. And for a man who is bored, that difficulty is the most intoxicating thing imaginable. He starts to view the act of getting a reaction out of her as the ultimate proof of his own continued relevance. He tells himself that he is not actually looking for an affair or a change in his life, but rather he wants to see if he still has the touch that makes a woman take notice. This is a classic trap of the bored mind. He convinces himself that if he can just get her to smile, or if he can get her to engage in a deeper conversation, he will finally feel like a winner again. He is effectively using the Sigma female as a mirror to reassure himself that his masculine prowess has not faded with age or domestic duty. He does not stop to consider that the Sigma female is entirely unbothered by his attempts. She remains cold, distant, or simply observant, which only increases his fixation. He interprets her lack of response as an invitation to keep trying harder. Thinking that she is simply playing hard to get, he pours his energy into this chase, completely unaware that he is actually just a spectator to his own obsession. He is chasing a thrill that he knows, deep down, is a dangerous distraction from his reality. The forbidden nature of this pursuit makes it more intense for him because it feels like a secret project he is undertaking. He feels he is outsmarting his own life by finding a woman who operates on a plane that his current partner cannot reach. This entire pursuit is a delusion, but he clings to it because the act of trying to conquer the unconquerable is the only thing that makes him feel alive. He is not pursuing the Sigma female because of who she really is. He is pursuing her because he needs a challenge that his own life no longer provides, failing to realize that her silence is the only answer she will ever give him. Final takeaway: the takeaway is simple. None of this is on the Sigma female. She is just being herself, and she must understand that her existence is not a signal of availability. The Sigma female is focused, independent, and observant, and that is simply her nature. She lives for her own growth and her own peace, and she should never feel the need to shrink or dim her light just because others are drawn to her gravity. However, it is vital that the Sigma female sees these men for exactly what they are. They are not looking for a genuine partner or a soul connection. Instead, they are looking for a temporary, exciting distraction from the mundane life they chose for themselves. They feel trapped, bored, and restless in their own commitments, and they view the Sigma female as an escape hatch from their own reality. The Sigma female must not mistake their attention for depth or true interest. These men are often just looking for a mirror to see themselves in. And because the Sigma female is so remarkably calm, collected, and composed, they imagine she is the perfect reflection of everything they feel they are missing. They do not see her as a whole person with her own complex life. They see her as a blank canvas upon which they can project their own fantasies of freedom. She is a concept to them, not a human being. The Sigma female must keep her standards high and her circle tight. She has worked hard to build a life that is defined by her own rules and her own autonomy, and she cannot allow the wandering eyes of dissatisfied men to disrupt that balance. That if she notices this unwanted attention, it is important to remember that the fact they are looking does not mean the Sigma female is doing anything wrong. She is not responsible for their lack of integrity or their need to find validation outside of their own lives. In fact, their focus on her is simply evidence that she has successfully mastered the art of being her own person. There is nothing more attractive in this world than a woman who is genuinely complete on her own. It stands in such stark contrast to the performative, needy behavior of the rest of the world that it inevitably draws eyes. It is the ultimate testament to her value that she can exist in a room and pull attention without even trying. The question remains, can this unwanted attention actually be avoided? The reality is that for the Sigma female, this is often the price of living with such high, unyielding value. When a woman refuses to play the games that everyone else is playing, she becomes a beacon for those who are desperate to find something real. It is likely impossible to fully avoid this because her independence is a core part of her identity, not an accessory she can simply remove. The Sigma female cannot change how others view her, but she can change how she responds to it. She should not view this as a burden, but rather as an indicator that she's living authentically. Her power lies in her refusal to be distracted by their games. She must keep her gaze forward, stay true to her own path, and continue cultivating the life that makes her feel most like herself. Ultimately, being a high-value independent woman means accepting that she will attract people who want to consume her energy, and her strength will be defined by her ability to protect her peace, stay focused, stay guarded, and stay exactly who she is.